and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we're taking a look at the new Stitch Rainbow die set. So it comes with a die that will cut a base for your rainbow to set on. This also has an outside stitching detail, so you can cut an opening with a stitching detail as well. Then there are the arches of the rainbow. There are 5 of those and they're separate dies, so you can cut each one separately out of a different color of cardstock. Each of these arches will stack perfectly inside each other to create your rainbow with that cool stitching detail on each arch. All of these arches will stack perfectly onto the base that the die cuts, making one rainbow which is easy to add to any project. In addition to the rainbow, there are 2 clouds that have a stitching detail as well. There are 2 faces that you can cut out of the cloud, but you don't have to. You can snip those out and make a cloud without a face. And then there are the little rosy cheek details that you can add as well. For the first card I'm making in this video, I'm going to make a simple card, and I'm cutting my clouds out of some Pixie Dust white glitter cardstock. I'm adding the little faces to the center of the clouds for this card, and I'm just going to hold those in place with some tape as I run them through my die cut machine. Next, I'm going to work on the background that this rainbow is going to go on. So I have a piece of Moonstone cardstock cut with a stitched rectangle die. I'm going to add that Starry Sky Stencil over top of it, and I'm going to be adding some Yeti white pigment ink to the stencil. This is going to create a subtle background so that rainbow really pops off, and there's no colors to compete with the colors of the rainbow. I'm just going to be adding this ink with my blending brush all over this background. Now that I have my background stenciled, I'm going to use that die that cuts the base of the rainbow, and I'm going to cut an opening in this background. This is going to give me that stitching detail around that opening, and I'm going to inlay my rainbow into that opening. I've cut all the arches of the rainbow from all the colors in the Tropical Shimmer cardstock pack. And then I'm just going to layer a piece of white cardstock on the back of this panel that I created. And that'll give me a place to glue down my arches and inlay them down into this stitched opening. I'm just going to use liquid glue for each one of these arches and to add them to that little opening that I've created. You could also add these to a piece by themselves and add it on top, but I just liked that stitching detail around the rainbow. I think it just added some extra interest. Now I'm going to take a little piece of storm cloud cardstock and layer that behind my clouds to fill in the face that was cut out of the clouds. Next, I'm going to add the little rosy cheeks to these clouds. I've cut the little cheeks from some ballet slipper cardstock. I'm just adding a little dot of liquid glue where those should go, and I'm just going to pick those up with my embellishment wand and place them where they need to be. So now I'm going to work on the sentiment for this background. I've placed my clouds just to have some placement so I know the spacing that I have underneath this rainbow. And I'm using stamps from the All the Clouds stamp set. There's some really great sentiments in this set, and I like the one that says "Sending Smiles Your Way." So this is going to stretch across the bottom of the card, and I'm just lining these stamps up underneath the clouds, and I'll pick those up with the door of my MISTI to stamp them down. I'm just using some black ink. You can see I've removed the clouds. Like I said, they were just for placement, and I'm just going to stamp that nice dark sentiment onto that background. Now I can place this panel onto a white card base, and you can see there's a nice thin white border around it. And then I'm going to take some foam adhesive and put it on the back of those clouds so that they pop up off that background a little bit and hide the bottom of that rainbow. Next, I cut a few little stars from some yellow glitter cardstock just to add a few little embellishments around the top of this rainbow. And then there is my finished card. I love those glittery clouds with those cute little smiles. Next, I'm going to be recreating a Slimline card by Tammy. So I've taken some white cardstock and I've cut that with the largest of the Slimline rectangles. I'm going to be doing some ink blending using two different colors of ink. So I'm starting with Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide ink and my blending brush, and I'm just going to add that ink to the top and the bottom of this panel. Next, I'm going in with some dried marigold Distress Oxide for the center. I'm starting off the page and bringing the ink on through the middle, making sure to blend where it meets that worn lipstick so that we have a nice smooth transition. Next, I'm going to use the Starry Sky Stencil, and I'm going to add that by taping it to the back. And I'm going to go back in with the same colored inks and go over those same areas. So I'm taking that worn lipstick and I'm going over where I had that worn lipstick color before. Then I'm going to go in with the dried marigold and go over the center piece. Making sure not to cross over the edge of my stencil here, stay where those openings are, and then we'll just move it down and continue inking through the stencil for the bottom. I love the nice subtle texture that this technique creates. Now for my rainbows, again I've cut those same rainbows from that same tropical shimmer cardstock for this card, and I'm just stacking those onto that base cut from white cardstock. So this will create one rainbow that's one piece and easy to put on the project. This would also create a cute tag, I think, just a rainbow by itself. Now to work on the clouds that go at the bottom of this card. So I've cut that same slimline rectangle from some vellum and some white cardstock, and I'm using my Puffy cloud border dies to cut those to create some clouds for the bottom. I have a piece of vellum cut first that's going to layer on the front. Now I'm cutting a piece of white that will layer behind it. And then finally, there's another piece of vellum that will layer behind those white clouds. I'm going to hold these in place with the magnet in my MISTI tool just to see the placement of the clouds so that I can work on the sentiment that goes on the background. The sentiment says sending sunshine and smiles, and it comes from the All the Clouds stamp set. So I've just put those on the MISTI door. I'm going to be doing some white embossing, so I'm going to add my anti-static tool to that background that I created. I'm going to ink it up with some clear embossing ink. And then once I have that stamped, I can add some white embossing powder. Then I'll take my heat tool and melt that white embossing powder, and I love that you can see how that sentiment just appears when it gets all melted and bright and white. Now I can add this whole panel that I've created to a slimline card base, which is 8.5 by 3.5. And now I'm going to work on layering the clouds and starting to decorate this card. So I've layered those white clouds onto the vellum, and then I'm actually going to use some vellum adhesive runner to layer these vellum clouds on top of the white. And I'm keeping that adhesive runner right along the bottom, even though you don't really see it. I just want it to be even less obvious. So now I can put some adhesive just behind the white and layer all those on the bottom of this card. Next, I'm going to pull out my two rainbows that I created earlier and figure out the placement that I want for those. These are going to overhang the sides of the cards and get trimmed off in the end. I also have these cute little unicorns from Unicorn Picnic, and then the clouds from the Stitch Rainbow die as well to decorate. I've got a cloud cut from vellum. I'm tucking that behind that rainbow and using a little bit of that vellum adhesive again. And then this cloud is going to be popped up on some foam, and it's going to hide that end of the rainbow. I've also cut a little sunshine from some yellow glitter cardstock and some sticky note cardstock, and I'm just going to tuck that behind this rainbow on top. This sun die is from the circle reveal we'll add on, that is the sun and flower frames. And then I'm going to take some foam adhesive squares and pop this little unicorn up, sitting up on that cloud, which I think is super cute. And then this little guy's just going to sit in the clouds at the bottom. And then finally, once I have all these in place, I can take my scissors and I can trim off that excess where those rainbows overhang the sides of the card. I also stamped a little smiley face with the sunglasses that's from the All the Clouds stamp set onto that sun, which I think is just super cute. And then here is that finished card that I recreated that's inspired by Tammy. Now let's take a look at some cards by the design team. I love Audrey's sparkle background with that light inking and how she incorporated clouds and the sunshine from the All the Clouds stamp set. Tammy created a cute little scene with unicorns, and I love that she used the unicorn that hides behind the cloud as the end of her rainbow. And Grace created this really cool slimline shaker card that has the rainbow behind those glittery shaker elements. Elise created a cute simple card with an inked rainbow and an ink blended cloudy background. And Letitia made a lovely slimline card with all those rainbows and those cute little clouds smiling back at us. Chari used the rainbow to stretch the scene up this slimline card. I just love that rainbow over the castle. And then Megan ended her rainbow with a cool shaker cloud using the cloud frame dies. I added the rainbow to my Wizard of Oz inspired card because we all know that the Land of Oz is at the end of the rainbow. And then here's Tammy's card that inspired the card that I made today. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.